Chapters 50 through 74. There is a moment in every story when understanding is no longer enough, when knowing what something is does not protect you from what it will become. They have crossed that moment. What was hidden has now been seen, not just by them, by something older, something patient, something that has been waiting for the line to reveal itself again. And now that it has, it will not be allowed to grow unchecked. The world is no longer just responding. It is shifting, not gently, not quietly, but with purpose. The balance they thought they were learning to hold is being tested, not by chance, by design. Because there are those who do not allow change, those who do not adapt, those who do not evolve, those who correct, not out of cruelty, but because they believe the world must remain as it was. This is where the circle begins to move. Not with chaos, not with force, with precision, with understanding, with the certainty that what has emerged must be contained. And they are not alone in watching. There are others, older than conflict, older than power, older than the idea of control itself. They do not act. They observe, because what happens next will determine more than who survives. It will determine what the world is allowed to become. The bond is no longer just theirs. It has become something the world recognizes, something it responds to, something it depends on, whether they are ready for that or not. And that is where the danger truly begins. Because when something becomes essential, it also becomes a target. The question has changed again. Not what are they becoming, but whether they will be allowed to become it at all. Final lines of the opening. The bond strengthens. The world shifts. And something that does not believe in change has begun to move against it. Subscribe now and follow the full journey. Because every chapter reveals more than the last, and the ending is something you won't see coming. Chapter 74. The attempt to divide them. The shift was immediate. Elara felt it before the network moved, before the fracture stirred, before the air changed. The bond tightened. Not from within, from something pressing against it. Adrian felt it at the same moment. That's new, he said quietly. Elara didn't answer, because she was already bracing. The first direct intrusion. It didn't come like force, didn't strike, didn't fracture. It slipped, between, where the bond held steady. Something tried to thread itself through it, not to sever, to alter. The circle adjusts strategy. They have established dual anchoring, one voice said. Yes. Then we destabilize the connection between anchors. A pause. Introduced divergence. Back in the network. Elara staggered, not from pain, from confusion. For a split second, the bond didn't feel like Adrian. Not wrong, but misaligned. She pulled back instinctively. Adrian felt it, not as rejection, as distortion. Elara, he said, steady but firm. But she hesitated. And that hesitation was exactly what the circle needed. The first fracture attempt. The network flickered, not collapsing. Uncertain. Kale's voice cut through it. They're inside it. Adrian didn't look away from Elara. No. A pause. They're trying to make us doubt what's real. The dangerous edge. Because the bond had never been tested like this. Not against force. Against perception. Against trust. Elara's breath hitched. It doesn't feel like you, she said quietly. Adrian didn't move closer. Didn't reach for her. He held where he was. Then spoke. Clear, grounded, unshaken. Then don't trust the feeling. A pause. Trust me. The choice that matters. That was the moment. Not power. Not resistance. Choice. Elara closed her eyes. The distortion pushed harder, twisting the space between them, altering the way it felt, trying to replace certainty with hesitation. But beneath it, there was something else. Not loud. Not overwhelming. Steady. Him. She chooses. Elara stepped forward. Not because the bond pulled her. Because she decided it was still real. Her hand found his again. And this time, she didn't question it. The bond reasserts itself. The distortion snapped. Not violently,
Cleanly.
The false thread dissolved, because it had nothing to hold on to. The network stabilizes. The wolves steadied. The fracture remained contained. And the connection between them, stronger, not because it had resisted, because it had been chosen again. The circle reacts. They are rejecting imposed divergence, one voice said. Yes. They are reinforcing through voluntary alignment. A longer pause. That cannot be forced. Another voice followed. Then we increase pressure until choice fails. The watchers shift again. They are attempting to fracture trust, one said. Yes. That will not succeed the way they expect. A pause. Because it was not built through control. That distinction mattered. Back between them, Elara exhaled slowly. It tried to make you feel like someone else. Adrian nodded. I felt it. A pause. But I didn't move. She looked at him.
No. A breath.
You didn't. And that was what held. The first true understanding. This was not a bond that could be broken by force. Or even distortion. Because it did not rely on instinct alone. It relied on something far more dangerous. Choice, made again, even when doubt existed. Final moment, the network pulsed steady. The fracture remained contained. The circle did not withdraw. But they did not press again. Not yet. Because something had just become clear. They could disrupt structure. They could distort connection. But they could not force doubt to win, unless it was accepted. And Elara had not accepted it. Chapter 75. What could not be unmade. The distortion faded. Not completely, but enough. The space between them steadied, not untouched. Changed. Elara didn't step away. That mattered. Because for a moment, she had almost. And now, she didn't. The silence after. No one spoke at first. Not Adrian. Not Kale. Not even the wolves. Because something had just been tested.
And passed.
But not without cost. Elara's breath was slower now. Measured. Not from weakness. From recalibration. What remains after doubt? She looked at Adrian again. Not searching.
Seeing.
You felt different, she said. Adrian nodded. I know. A pause. But I didn't move. Her voice softened.
No. A breath.
You didn't. That was what had held. Not the bond itself. Him. What she realizes now. The circle hadn't tried to break the connection. They had tried to make her question it. And, for a moment, they had succeeded. That truth didn't weaken her. It clarified something deeper. They'll try that again, she said. Adrian didn't hesitate. Then we don't let the first doubt be the last word. The network responds to certainty. The threads shifted again. Not tightening. Strengthening. Not from force. From clarity regained. The fracture remained. But it no longer trembled. It held. The circle reassesses. They resisted divergence. One voice said. Yes. They reestablished alignment through voluntary reaffirmation. A pause. That increases structural resilience. Another voice followed. Then escalate. What escalation means now? Not more pressure. Not more distortion. Something else. Something deeper. They will not break through uncertainty alone. One voice continued. Then we create conditions where certainty cannot be maintained. Back in the field, Elara felt it shift again. Not at the bond. Not within the network. Around them. They're changing the field again, she said. Kale's posture tightened.
How?
Elara's voice lowered. They're going to make everything unstable. The first sign. The ground didn't tremble. The air didn't shift. But the connections, across the network, flickered. Not breaking.
But strained.
Multiple points. At once. The new threat. Adrian's gaze sharpened. They're not targeting one place anymore. Elara nodded.
No.
A pause. They're targeting everything at once. That was the difference. The bond had held. So now, the circle would try to overwhelm it. The first moment of realization. Kale exhaled slowly. They're trying to stretch us too thin. Adrian didn't look away. Yes. A pause. And if we respond the same way everywhere, Elara finished it. We break ourselves. The silent Luna evolves again. She didn't move immediately, didn't reach outward, didn't try to stabilize every point. Instead, she stilled. The network shifted slightly, waiting, because this was no longer about reacting. It was about choosing where to hold. The first strategic choice. We don't fix everything, Elara said. Kale frowned. What do you mean? Elara's gaze steadied. We hold where it matters most. Adrian nodded slowly and let the rest adjust. That was dangerous because it meant accepting imperfection, but it was necessary because this was no longer a battle of strength. It was a battle of sustainability. The Watchers see the shift. They are no longer attempting total restoration, one said.
No.
They are prioritizing stability over completeness. A pause. That is a higher-order adaptation. Final moment. Elara stepped closer to Adrian again. Not for support. For alignment. The bond held, not strained.
Certain.
They couldn't unmake it, she said quietly. Adrian's voice followed.
No.
A breath passed between them. And they won't. Because now, it wasn't just something they felt. It was something they had chosen to keep. Even when it wasn't easy. Even when it was tested. And that was something the circle had no structure to dismantle. Chapter 75. What could not be unmade. The distortion faded. Not completely, but enough. The space between them steadied, not untouched. Changed. Elara didn't step away. That mattered. Because for a moment, she had almost. And now, she didn't. The silence after. No one spoke at first. Not Adrian. Not Kale. Not even the wolves. Because something had just been tested.
And passed.
But not without cost. Elara's breath was slower now. Measured. Not from weakness. From recalibration. What remains after doubt? She looked at Adrian again. Not searching.
Seeing.
You felt different, she said. Adrian nodded. I know. A pause. But I didn't move. Her voice softened.
No. A breath.
You didn't. That was what had held. Not the bond itself. Him. What she realizes now. The circle hadn't tried to break the connection. They had tried to make her question it. And, for a moment, they had succeeded. That truth didn't weaken her. It clarified something deeper. They'll try that again, she said. Adrian didn't hesitate. Then we don't let the first doubt be the last word. The network responds to certainty. The threads shifted again. Not tightening. Strengthening. Not from force. From clarity regained. The fracture remained. But it no longer trembled. It held. The circle reassesses. They resisted divergence. One voice said. Yes. They reestablished alignment through voluntary reaffirmation. A pause. That increases structural resilience. Another voice followed. Then escalate. What escalation means now? Not more pressure. Not more distortion. Something else. Something deeper. They will not break through uncertainty alone. One voice continued. Then we create conditions where certainty cannot be maintained. Back in the field, Elara felt it shift again. Not at the bond. Not within the network. Around them. They're changing the field again, she said. Kale's posture tightened.
How?
Elara's voice lowered. They're going to make everything unstable. The first sign. The ground didn't tremble. The air didn't shift. But the connections, across the network, flickered. Not breaking.
But strained.
Multiple points. At once. The new threat. Adrian's gaze sharpened. They're not targeting one place anymore. Elara nodded.
No.
A pause. They're targeting everything at once. That was the difference. The bond had held. So now, the circle would try to overwhelm it. The first moment of realization. Kale exhaled slowly. They're trying to stretch us too thin. Adrian didn't look away. Yes. A pause. And if we respond the same way everywhere, Elara finished it. We break ourselves. The silent Luna evolves again. She didn't move immediately, didn't reach outward, didn't try to stabilize every point. Instead, she stilled. The network shifted slightly, waiting, because this was no longer about reacting. It was about choosing where to hold. The first strategic choice. We don't fix everything, Elara said. Kale frowned. What do you mean? Elara's gaze steadied. We hold where it matters most. Adrian nodded slowly, and let the rest adjust. That was dangerous, because it meant accepting imperfection. But it was necessary, because this was no longer a battle of strength. It was a battle of sustainability. The Watchers see the shift. They are no longer attempting total restoration, one said.
No.
They are prioritizing stability over completeness. A pause. That is a higher-order adaptation. Final moment. Elara stepped closer to Adrian again. Not for support. For alignment. The bond held, not strained.
Certain.
They couldn't unmake it, she said quietly. Adrian's voice followed.
No.
A breath passed between them. And they won't. Because now, it wasn't just something they felt. It was something they had chosen to keep. Even when it wasn't easy. Even when it was tested. And that was something the circle had no structure to dismantle. Chapter 78. What that place truly is. The pressure didn't return immediately. That was the first sign. The circle had not withdrawn. They had paused, watching, measuring what Elara had chosen not to lose. The point holds. The thread beneath their hands burned brighter, not violently.
Defined.
No longer just part of the network. Different. Elara felt it deepen, not outward.
Down.
Into something older. This isn't just a connection, she said quietly. Adrian didn't move his hands. What is it? Elara's breath slowed as she listened, not to the surface of the network, but to what lay beneath it. The ground answers. For the first time since the line began to reform, the Earth responded directly. Not through pulses. Not through light. Through memory. Images not seen, but known, rose within her. A place. Not nightfall. Not any territory she had walked. Older.
Hidden. Kept.
The silent truth revealed. Elara's voice dropped. This isn't something we created. A pause. It's something that was left behind. Kale stepped closer. Left behind by who? Elara didn't answer immediately. Because the answer wasn't simple. Beyond the circle's reach. The memory shifted again. Not wolves as they were now. Wolves as they had been. Connected, not by force, by something deeper than instinct. Balanced. Not ruled. Not structured. Aligned. They didn't destroy the silent Luna line, Elara said. Adrian's gaze sharpened. They hit it. The Watchers react instantly. They've found it, one said. Yes. The original anchor. A pause. The circle never located it. Silence followed. Because that changed everything. Back at the point, the light beneath their hands pulsed again, not stronger, clearer. Adrian felt it now, not just through Elara, through himself. This is why you couldn't let it go, he said. Elara nodded slowly. Yes.
A breath.
This is where it all started. The circle understands too late. They have located a foundational node, one voice said. Yes. That was not within known territory. A pause. Then we remove it. Another voice responded. We cannot. Silence. It is not expose. What makes it different? This point was not like the others. It was not a thread, not a connection. It was a root, hidden beneath everything the circle had tried to erase. Untouched. Until now. The network responds. The remaining threads strengthened. Not outward. Downward. Anchoring. Not spreading thin. Holding deeper. Kale exhaled slowly. This changes the whole fight. Adrian nodded. Yes. Because now, they were not just rebuilding. They were reconnecting to something that had never been destroyed. The first true fear of the circle. They have access to original structure. One voice said. Yes. That was not meant to be recovered. A pause. If it stabilizes. The sentence did not need to finish. Because they all understood. The watchers stepped closer. They've reached the threshold, one said. Yes. The line is no longer reforming.
A pause.
It is returning. And that was something even the watchers had not expected to happen so soon. Back between them, Elara looked at Adrian, not uncertain. Certain in a different way now. This isn't just ours to hold, she said. Adrian met her gaze.
No. A breath.
But we're the ones who found it. The first true responsibility. The weight shifted again. Not heavier. More defined. Because now, they knew what they were protecting. Not just a connection. Not just each other. Something that had existed long before either of them. And would exist long after. If they held it long enough. Final moment. The light beneath their hands steadied. No longer flickering. No longer fragile. Rooted. And for the first time, the network did not feel like something at risk. It felt like something that could not be fully erased. Because it had never truly been gone. Chapter 79. When the root awakens. The stillness did not last. It never does when something ancient begins to surface. Elara felt it first, not as pressure, as movement beneath everything. Not the network, not the threads.
Deeper.
Older.
Alive.
The root shifts. The ground beneath their hands warmed. Not with energy, with presence. Not reacting, responding. Elara's breath slowed. It knows we're here, she said. Adrian didn't pull away. No, he answered quietly. A pause. It knows you. The difference matters. Because this wasn't power she was drawing. This wasn't something she was controlling. This was something that had been waiting. And now, it was no longer dormant. The first awakening pulse. The light beneath them deepened, gold shifting into something richer. Layered. Threads that had once spread outward now bent. Inward.
Toward the root.
Toward origin. Kale stepped back slightly, not from fear. From recognition. This isn't just holding anymore, he said. Elara shook her head.
No. A breath.
It's waking up. The network responds instantly. Across every remaining point, the threads shifted. Stabilized. Strengthened. Not by Elara. Not by Adrian. By the root itself. The circle reacts without hesitation. They've activated it, one voice said. Yes. The foundational structure is no longer dormant. A pause. Then we proceed to full disruption. Another voice answered. There will be no second attempt. The first direct strike on the root. It came without warning. Not through the network. Not through the bond. From above. The sky fractured. Not visibly. Structurally. Pressure unlike anything before. Condensed. Focused. Not aimed at Elara. Not aimed at Adrian. At the root itself. Impact. The force struck. And for a moment, everything stilled. No sound. No movement. Only impact meeting something that refused to yield. What doesn't break? The root did not shatter. It did not fracture. But it answered. Not outward. Downward.
Deeper.
The force dispersed, not deflected, absorbed into something far older than the circle's design. The watchers stepped forward, finally. They've crossed it, one said. Yes. They are attacking the original balance point. A pause. That was never within their right. Silence stretched, then broke. We intervene. Back at the root. Elara felt it, not as relief, as alignment. Something beyond her. Now standing with her. Adrian felt it too. This just changed, he said. Elara nodded. Yes.
A breath.
We're not the only ones holding this anymore. The circle feels it too. There is external interference, one voice said. Yes. The watchers have entered.
A pause.
Then this is no longer containment. Another voice finished it. This is escalation. The root expands. The light beneath them surged, not violently. Fully. The network didn't just stabilize. It grew. Not outward in scattered threads, in structured paths. Returning. Reclaiming what had been lost. The first true shift of power. Kale stared outward as distant threads reignited. They're coming back, he said. Adrian's voice steadied.
No.
A pause. They were always there. Elara understands now. This was never about rebuilding something new. It was about uncovering what had been buried, what had waited, what could not be erased. Final moment. Elara lifted her gaze, not to the circle, but beyond them, beyond the battlefield, toward everything that had been lost, and was no longer beyond reach. They try to end it, she said quietly. Adrian's voice followed. They couldn't. The root pulsed once.
Strong.
Unyielding. And for the first time, the circle was no longer shaping the outcome. They were reacting to it. Chapter 80. When the Watchers step into the world. The air changed. Not with pressure. Not with force. With presence that did not belong to the circle. Elara felt it first, not through the root.
Through the space around it.
Something older than the network, older than the circle, had entered. The stillness that commands. Everything slowed, not stopped, yielded. The forest did not bend. The ground did not tremble. But something in the world recognized what had arrived. Adrian's voice lowered. They're here. Elara didn't ask who. She already knew. They do not appear. They are understood. There were no forms at first. No bodies stepping forward. Only awareness. Layered.
First.
Watching, not from above. From within everything that had always existed before the circle touched it. Kale exhaled slowly. This isn't like them. Adrian shook his head.
No. A pause.
They don't need to prove anything. The circle reacts for the first time, carefully. Watcher presence confirmed, one voice said. Silence followed. Not uncertainty. Calculation. They have crossed into active engagement. A pause. Then we proceed with caution. That word had never belonged to them before. The first form takes shape. The light near the root shifted. Not brighter.
Defined.
And from within it, a figure stepped forward. Not fully solid. Not fully light. But present. Ancient. Not wolf. Not human. Something that held aspects of both and neither. Elara did not step back. She stood. Because something in her recognized it. The voice that does not echo. When it spoke, it did not carry through air. It settled.
Direct.
You have awakened what was never theirs to end. Elara's breath steadied. They tried, she said. The figure regarded her, not judging, acknowledging. They tried because they forgot what balance requires. The truth of the Watchers. Kale's voice came low. You've been watching this whole time. The figure turned slightly, not defensive.
Certain.
We observe what maintains itself.
A pause.
We intervene when something attempts to replace it. Adrian stepped forward slightly, not confrontational, but you let them erase everything else. The figure's gaze shifted, not away.
Deeper.
We did not stop what could return. A pause. But this, its presence deepened, is not erasure. The line defined clearly. Elara felt it now. The distinction. The circle had been removing.
But now.
They were rewriting, trying to replace balance with something controlled. Something permanent. That's why you stepped in, she said. The Watcher inclined its head slightly. Yes. The root responds to them. The light beneath them surged again. Not outward. Upward. Toward the Watcher. Not as power. As recognition. Even this, even something this old, was not above the root. It was part of what it protected. The circle tests the boundary. A pressure formed again. Smaller. Careful. Directed toward the Watcher.
Testing.
The Watcher did not move. The pressure dissolved before it reached. Not blocked. Unaccepted. The first true imbalance revealed. You are outside your design, the Watcher said. The circle did not answer immediately. Because there was no denial. Only intent. Balance evolves, one voice finally said. The Watcher's presence sharpened. Not anger. Clarity. Balance is not ownership. Back between them. Elara looked at Adrian. They can't win this the same way anymore. Adrian nodded.
No.
A pause. But they won't stop. The Watchers confirm it. They will escalate, the Watcher said. Yes. They will send what they have not yet revealed.
Kale frowned.
What haven't they revealed? The Watcher did not soften. They're enforcers. The shift into the next war. The words settled heavily, because everything so far, had not been their full force. Elara's gaze steadied. Then we'll be ready. The Watcher regarded her again. Not dismissing. Not encouraging. Measuring. You are becoming what was hidden, it said. A pause. But you are not yet what will be required. Final moment. The Watcher did not disappear. But it did not remain fully present either. Its presence stretched, across the route, across the network, watching, now not from distance, but from within the same space. And the world no longer felt like it was collapsing. It felt like it was deciding. Chapter 81. The first enforcer arrives. The Watcher's presence had not faded. It had spread, not dominating, not overtaking, anchoring. The forest held differently now. The air no longer felt unstable. It felt observed with purpose. Elara stood within it, the roots steady beneath her hands. For the first time, she did not feel like she was holding the world together. She felt like she was standing inside something that already knew how to. The stillness breaks. It began with silence. Not the absence of sound, the absence of movement that should have been there. Adrian's head turned slightly. They're not adjusting, he said. Kale frowned. Then what are they doing? The Watcher answered before either of them could. They are choosing. The meaning of that choice. The words settled heavily. Because the circle had not hesitated before. They had calculated, adapted, adjusted. But this was something else. The sky fractures differently this time. No pressure descended. No distortion crept in. The space above the root opened, not broken, parted. And from within that fracture, something stepped through. The first enforcer. It did not rush,
Did not strike. It arrived.
form taking shape slowly. Not like the circle, not like the Watchers. Something crafted, deliberate. A wolf, but not as any of them had ever seen. Larger, not in size alone, in presence. Its form seemed to hold two realities at once. Physical, and something beneath it, structured. As if it had been designed to exist in both. Kale's voice drops. That's not a wolf, he said. The Watcher did not look at him.
No.
A pause. It is what they send when balance cannot be negotiated. The enforcer moves. One step. The ground responded, not with recognition, with resistance. The root dimmed, just slightly. Elara felt it immediately. It's not trying to break it, she said. Adrian's voice tightened.
No.
It's trying to override it. The circle speaks through it. You have exceeded acceptable variance. The voice did not echo. It resided within the enforcer. You have reactivated restricted structure. Another step. Correction will now occur. The first real threat to the root. The enforcer lowered its head slightly. Not in aggression. In alignment. The air around it shifted. Not pressure. Control. The root flickered again, not weakening. Reacting. For the first time, something had entered that was designed not to destroy the root, but to replace its authority. Elara does not step back. She moved forward. Not away.
Toward it.
Adrian stepped with her, without hesitation. You don't face that alone, he said. Elara didn't argue, because she didn't need to. The bond responds instantly. Not as power, as alignment. Not just between them and the root. For the first time, they weren't just holding it. They were being recognized by it. The Watcher intervenes, but not how they expect. The Watcher did not strike the enforcer, did not block it. Instead, it stepped beside Elara. Matching position, matching presence. You cannot defeat it through resistance, it said. Elara's voice steadied. Then how? A pause. You must remain what it cannot become. The difference becomes clear. The enforcer advanced again, controlled.
Perfect.
Unwavering. Designed for one purpose. Correction. Elara stood, not perfect, not controlled, choosing, holding, alive within the balance. Adrian understands first. It doesn't adapt, he said quietly. Elara's gaze sharpened.
No. A breath.
It enforces. That was its flaw. The first clash, not of power. The enforcer reached the edge of the root's influence.
And paused.
For the first time, it did not immediately override, because what it encountered was not something fixed, not something predictable. The Watcher speaks one final truth. Balance cannot be enforced, it said. A pause. It can only be held. Final moment. The enforcer stood at the threshold, not advancing, not retreating, calculating. For the first time, the circle had sensed something that did not immediately succeed. And for the first time, they were facing something they had not designed for. Not just Elara, not just Adrian, but what they had become, together with the root. Chapter 82. What the root chooses back. The silence stretched longer than it should have. The enforcer did not move. That alone was wrong. Kale felt it first. It should have acted already, he said. Adrian didn't take his eyes off it. Yes. A pause. But it doesn't know how. The first crack in design. The enforcer was built for correction. For imbalance. For deviation. But what stood before it was neither. Elara did not push. Did not reach. She stood. And the root beneath her hands pulsed again, not in response to threat, in response to her. The choice shifts direction. It's not waiting on them, Elara said quietly. Adrian glanced at her. What do you mean? Her voice lowered. It's waiting on me. The Watcher confirms it. Yes. The Watcher's presence deepened. It has recognized you. A pause. And now, it chooses. The meaning of that choice. Elara stilled. Because until now, everything had been reaction. Holding. Balancing. But this was something else. This was not about what she protected. This was about what would accept her. The root moves first. The light surged upward, not outward. Through her. Not overwhelming. Inviting. Adrian felt it instantly. Elara. But she didn't pull away. She leaned into it. The first true connection. Not bond. Not thread. Alignment. Her presence didn't extend into the root. The root met her where she stood. Recognizing. Responding. Accepting. The enforcer reacts. For the first time, it moved. A step forward. But not toward the root. Toward her. The circle speaks through it, strained. You are not authorized to access this structure. The voice wasn't stable anymore. Not certain. Because the root had not rejected her. Adrian steps in, but differently. He didn't block the enforcer. Didn't step between them. He stepped beside her. Matching her presence. Matching her choice. You don't stand in this alone, he said. The bond becomes something else. This time, it didn't just balance. It amplified alignment. The root responded again. Not just to Elara. To both of them. The Watcher sees it clearly. That was not part of the original line, it said. A pause. This is something new. The root accepts them both. The light expanded, not violently. Fully. The network surged not outward. Upward. Stabilizing across distances. Strengthening where it had been weak. Reconnecting where it had faded. The enforcer falters. It stopped. Not because it was blocked. Because it no longer had a defined action. This state does not match correction parameters, it said. And for the first time, it sounded uncertain. The circle begins to lose precision. Recalibrate, one distant voice commanded. But the enforcer did not move. Because recalibration required a defined imbalance. And this was not imbalance. It was balance evolving beyond its design. Elara speaks, not as defense. You don't belong here, she said. Not as challenge. As truth. The enforcer's gaze fixed on her. Correction must occur. Elara's voice didn't rise. It already is. The root confirms it. The ground pulsed once.
Deep.
Absolute. The enforcer stepped back.
Not forced.
Unable to proceed. The first retreat. Without defeat. It did not disappear. It withdrew. Step by step. Back toward the fracture it had entered from. Still present. Still observing. but no longer advancing. The Watcher speaks quietly. They have never encountered this. Adrian exhaled slowly. What is it? A pause. Balance that cannot be corrected. Final moment. The root steadied beneath them. Not fragile. Not reactive. Established. Elara's hand remained against the light. Adrian beside her. Not holding it up.
Not protecting it. Part of it now.
And for the first time, the circle had sensed something meant to end it. And it had not only failed, it had been refused. Chapter 83. When the circle sends more than one. The fracture in the sky did not close. It widened. Not violently. Deliberately. Elara felt it before she saw it. The pressure wasn't returning.
It was multiplying.
Adrian's voice lowered. They're not done. The Watcher did not move.
No.
A pause. They have only begun. The first shift in the circle's strategy. One enforcer had failed. Not because it was weak. Because it was singular. Predictable. Bound to its own design. The circle would not repeat that mistake. The sky answers again. Another presence emerged. Then another. Not stepping through one at a time. Layering into existence. 3. Each different. The second enforcer. Sleeker. Faster. Its form less defined. Edges shifting like it could move between states. Not built for correction. Built for adaptation. The third enforcer. Heavier. Its presence pressed against the ground itself. Not to override. To anchor control. Where it stood, the root dimmed. Not in fear. In resistance. The first enforcer remains. Still watching. Still learning. No longer leading. Kale steps back. Just once. That's not the same fight, he said. Adrian didn't answer immediately. Because it wasn't. Before, they had faced something designed to impose order.
Now.
They faced something designed to adapt, reinforce, and control simultaneously. The circle speaks, unified now. Correction parameters expanded. The voices were no longer separate. They overlapped. Coordinated. You have exceeded acceptable deviation. A pause. Resolution will be enforced through total convergence. Elara doesn't move. Not forward. Not back. But something in her changed. Not fear. Understanding. They learned, she said quietly. Adrian's jaw tightened. Yes. A pause. So do we. The root responds differently this time. It didn't surge. Didn't expand. It deepened. The light pulled inward. Concentrating. As if preparing for something it had not needed to do before. The Watcher finally steps fully forward. Not beside them. In front of them. You cannot meet them as you are, it said. Elara's voice didn't waver. Then what do we become? The Watcher did not soften. What you were meant to be before this was broken. The meaning lands slowly. Not stronger. Not faster. More complete. The enforcers advanced together. Not rushing. Perfect coordination. One moved to destabilize the root. One moved to fracture the network. One moved toward Elara. Not to strike. To isolate. Adrian moves without hesitation. He didn't block her. He expanded with her. The bond surged not outward. Through everything connected to them. For the first time, it wasn't just balance. It was reach. The network answers. Threads ignited, not scattered. Directed. The wolves. The hidden ones. The distant ones. All responded. Not called. Recognizing what was happening. The first true war begins. The forest didn't hold still anymore. The ground didn't remain passive. The air itself shifted. Because this was no longer containment. No longer testing. This was the moment everything moved at once. The Watcher speaks one final warning. This will not remain contained to this place. Adrian didn't look away from the advancing enforcers. It already isn't. Elara steps forward. Not alone. Never alone now. And for the first time, she didn't just feel the root beneath her. She felt everything connected to it. Standing with her. Final moment. The three enforcers closed in. Not chaotic.
Perfect. Designed.
And Elara stood not as someone holding balance, but as someone becoming it. Chapter 84. The first enforcer breaks. They move together. Not like wolves. Not like anything alive.
Perfect.
Each step measured. Each position deliberate.
No wasted motion.
3 threats, 1 purpose. The adaptive enforcer shifted first. Its form flickering, reading, learning. The anchoring enforcer pressed down, the ground dimming where it stood, trying to suppress the root's reach. And the first, the one that had hesitated,
Watched.
Elara feels it immediately. "They're dividing us," she said. Adrian's voice stayed level.
No.
A pause. "They're trying to define us." The strategy reveals itself. The adaptive one moved toward the network, testing edges. The anchoring one pushed into the root, compressing its expansion. And the first enforcer stepped toward Elara, not attacking, evaluating. The circle speaks again. "You are the variable." The voice came through the first enforcer now, clearer than before. "You are the deviation." Elara didn't step back. "I'm the balance you don't understand." The first direct clash. The adaptive enforcer struck, not with force, with shift. The network warped, threads bending, distorting, trying to rewrite how they connected. Adrian moved instantly, not to stop it, to stabilize the change. "Don't fight the shift," he said. A breath. "Hold what it's trying to change." The bond expands again. This time, it didn't just hold between them. It spread through the network. Anchoring identity, not structure, not pattern.
Truth.
The distortion slowed, could not fully take hold. The anchoring enforcer presses harder. The ground dimmed further. The root strained, not weakening.
Compressed.
Kale stepped forward. "This one's trying to choke it out," he said. The watcher's voice followed. "Then it must be met where it stands." Elara moves, for the first time away from the center. Adrian's eyes flicked to her. Elara. But she was already moving, not away from him. With the root still in her, she stepped toward the anchoring enforcer. The first real risk. The moment she left the center, the network strained. The fracture flickered. The adaptive enforcer surged again, trying to capitalize. Adrian didn't chase her.
He stayed.
Holding what she left behind. The first true division of roles. She moved outward. He held inward. Not separation. Expansion. Elara faces the anchoring enforcer. Up close. It felt heavier. Less intelligent. More absolute. "You suppress what cannot be controlled," she said. The enforcer did not respond. It pushed. And then she does something new. She didn't resist. She stepped into it. The root follows her. Not fully. Not entirely. But enough. The light surged beneath her. Not from where it had been. From where she stood now. The anchoring enforcer falters. Just slightly. Its pressure wavered. Because what it was trying to suppress was no longer fixed. Back at the center, the adaptive enforcer pressed harder. But Adrian held, not with force, with consistency. "You don't get to redefine this," he said quietly. The first enforcer steps forward again.
Toward him this time.
Not Elara. Not the root. Him. The unexpected target. Adrian didn't move. "You're not part of the original structure," it said. Its voice steadier now. "But you're influencing it." A pause. Remove influence. The moment everything turns. The enforcer struck. Not at the bond. At him. Impact. The force didn't throw him back. Didn't shatter anything. It tried to separate him from the network. From Elara. From the root. And for 1 second it works. The connection flickered. The network stuttered. Elara felt it. Sharp. Immediate. She turned. Adrian. The break that almost happens. The enforcer pressed. Trying to isolate him. To prove he was external. Unnecessary. Removable. And then he doesn't let go. Not of the bond.
Not of the network.
Not of her. He steadied. Not forcing reconnection. Refusing disconnection. "I'm not separate from this," he said. A breath. "I chose it." The root answers that choice. The light surged. Not through Elara. Through him. The first enforcer breaks. It stepped back, not retreating, recalculating beyond its design. Its form flickered, unstable, because it had encountered something it could not resolve. Chosen connection. The Watcher speaks quietly. It has reached its limit. Final moment. The Enforcer did not vanish, but it changed. Less certain, less fixed. No longer purely what it was sent to be, and for the first time, something the circle created had been altered by what it faced. Chapter 85. When what was sent begins to shift. The broken Enforcer did not disappear. That was the first thing they noticed. It remained where it stood, but no longer fully aligned with what had sent it. Its form flickered, not collapsing, rewriting itself. The others notice immediately. The adaptive Enforcer paused. Its shifting edges slowed, recalculating. The anchoring Enforcer pressed harder, but something beneath it resisted more than before. Not the root. Something
Within the system now.
Elara feels it first. It's not breaking, she said. Adrian's gaze stayed fixed.
No.
A pause. It's changing. The first Enforcer moves again. Not forward. Not back. Sideways. Out of formation. The circle responds sharply. Reassert directive. The voice struck through it. More forceful than before. Return to primary function. The Enforcer stilled. For a moment, it seemed like it would obey. And then it doesn't. It turned its head. Not toward the circle. Toward Elara. The first true break in control. Kale exhaled sharply. That's not supposed to happen. The Watcher's presence sharpened.
No.
A pause. It has encountered something outside its design. What it's seeing. The Enforcer studied her. Not as target. Not as variable.
As something it could not resolve.
You are inconsistent, it said. Elara didn't move. So are you now. The adaptive Enforcer reacts first. It surged, faster than before. Not at her. At the broken one.
Containment attempt.
It struck.
Trying to stabilize it.
Force it back into alignment. But the moment it touched, the flicker spread. The change is contagious. Not infection. Recognition. The adaptive Enforcer recoiled, its own form glitching briefly. The circle tightens control. Isolate anomaly. The command came sharper now. Do not engage. The anchoring Enforcer doubles down. It pressed harder into the ground, trying to suppress the root, trying to suppress everything connected to it. But something has shifted too far. The root didn't flare. It didn't fight back. It expanded through what it had already touched. And that included the broken Enforcer. The first Enforcer speaks again, but its voice was no longer clean, no longer unified. Correction is incomplete. A pause. Parameters insufficient. Adrian understands before anyone else. It's trying to redefine itself, he said. Kale looked at him. Or failing to. Adrian shook his head.
No.
A quiet certainty settled in his voice. It's trying to understand. The Watcher confirms it. That is the first step toward change, it said. A pause. And the greatest threat to what created it. The circle realizes the risk. Terminate compromised unit. The command was immediate. Absolute. The adaptive Enforcer moves again. Faster now.
Cleaner.
This time, not to stabilize. To erase. Elara steps forward.
No.
Not shouted. Not forced. Chosen. The roots surged, not violently, with her. Adrian moves with her instantly. Not behind. Not ahead. Beside. Always beside. The first stand against their own creation. The adaptive Enforcer struck. And this time, they met it. Not with force. With presence. With the root. With the bond. With the choice that had already changed one of them. Impact. The energy collided, not canceling, not overpowering, disrupting. The strike broke apart, scattering across the network. Harmless. The broken Enforcer remains. Still flickering. Still unstable. But no longer under immediate threat. The first true divide. One Enforcer shifting. One hesitating. One still fully aligned. The circle's perfect system. No longer perfect. final moment, Elara looked at the broken enforcer. Not with fear. With recognition. You don't have to stay what they made you, she said. It didn't answer. But it didn't turn away either. And, for the first time, something sent to destroy balance was beginning to question it. Chapter 86. The one that begins to choose. The broken enforcer did not return to formation. That alone fractured the field. Not physically. Functionally. The adaptive enforcer circled wider now. Not just studying Elara and Adrian. Studying its own kind. The anchoring enforcer pressed harder into the ground, as if trying to compensate, to force stability where it was slipping. But something had already gone too far. The first enforcer speaks again. Its voice came in fragments now. Not broken. Divided. Directive remains. A pause. But context altered. Kale frowned. It's thinking. The watcher's voice answered.
No. A beat.
It is deciding. The difference matters. Thinking follows logic. Decision requires something else. The circle moves to end it. Terminate deviation immediately. The command struck sharper than before. Not calculated.
Urgent.
Because they understood now. This was no longer a malfunction. This was a breach. The adaptive enforcer obeys. It moved instantly. Faster than before.
No hesitation.
No analysis.
Pure execution. Target. The one that changed.
It struck toward the broken enforcer. Not to stabilize.
To erase.
Elara moves before she thinks.
No.
The word wasn't loud, but it carried. Through the root. Through the network. Through everything now connected. Adrian is already there. He didn't follow. He was already moving with her. Because at this point, there was no delay between them. The root expands, not defensively. It didn't shield. It didn't block. It included. The light surged outward, wrapping the broken enforcer. Not protecting it. Recognizing it. Impact. The adaptive enforcer collided with that field, and for the first time, it did not pass through. It stalled. The system fails to resolve. Conflict detected, it said. Directive interference. It tried to adjust, to rear out, but every calculation returned the same result. No clear correction path. The broken enforcer steps forward.
Toward them.
Not aggressively. Not uncertainly. Intentionally. The first true choice. I was sent to correct, it said. The voice steadier now, though still layered.
A pause.
But correction requires definition. Its gaze shifted, not to the circle, to Elara. You are not incorrect. The circle fractures in response. Silence then. Remove it. No more nuance. No more recalibration. Just removal. The anchoring enforcer turns. For the first time, all three were no longer aligned. One shifting. One hesitating. One attacking. The field becomes unstable. Not because of the root. Because the circle system was breaking its own cohesion. Adrian sees it clearly. They can't hold themselves together if this spreads, he said. The watcher answered.
No.
A pause. And they know it. Elara steps forward again. Closer to the broken enforcer. Not cautiously. Deliberately. You don't have to follow them, she said. Its form flickered. Then steadied. I was not made to choose. Elara's voice softened. But you are now. The moment that changes everything. Silence. Not empty. Full. The broken enforcer turned. Away from the circle's direction. And stood. Beside them. The first affection. The adaptive enforcer froze. The anchoring one hesitated. And the circle, for the first time, did not respond immediately. The watcher speaks quietly. It has crossed the line. Adrian exhaled slowly. What does that mean? A pause. It is no longer theirs. Final moment. The field held, but not the way it had before. Now there were not just two sides. There were fractures within the circle itself. And Elara, standing at the center of it, realized something that changed the entire war. This was no longer about surviving them. It was about what they might become if they continued to change. Chapter 87. What they send when control is not enough. The field did not reset. It fractured. Not visibly, structurally. The moment the enforcer stepped beside them, something deeper than tactics gave way. The circle did not speak at first. That was the warning. The silence before escalation. Adrian felt it like pressure with no direction. Not targeting. Not testing. Gathering. They're not adjusting, he said. The Watcher's presence sharpened.
No. A pause.
They are abandoning constraint. What that means. Until now, everything the circle had sent followed rules. Correction parameters. Containment structures. Defined outcomes. But those rules had failed. So now, they would remove them. The sky does not fracture, it deepens. The tear above them did not widen. It darkened. Not absence of light, absence of limitation. Elara felt it immediately. This isn't like the others. Adrian's voice lowered.
No.
A pause. It doesn't feel contained. The defected enforcer reacts first. It stepped forward, not in defense, in recognition. Do not remain, it said. The words came clearer now, less fragmented, more aware. Kale's eyes narrow. What is it? The enforcer did not hesitate. Unbounded correction. The phrase settled like something final. The Watcher confirms it. They are sending something that does not require balance to exist. A pause. That should not be possible. And then it arrives. Not stepping through. Not forming slowly. It appears.
Instant.
Complete. The fourth presence. It does not resemble a wolf. It does not resemble anything known. Its form shifts constantly. Edges rewriting, structure unstable. As if it has no fixed design. The first true absence of balance. Where it stands, the root dims. Not suppressed. Ignored. The network stutters. Not broken. Unrecognized. Elara feels it clearly. It's not part of anything, she said. The Watcher's voice was quieter now. Not uncertain.
Grave. No.
A pause. It exists outside the system. Why that is dangerous. Everything they had faced before, even the enforcers, operated within structure, within rules, within something that could be met. This had none. The circle speaks through it, but not like before. Not unified. Not controlled. Layered. You have introduced instability beyond correction. The voice was not steady. It was overlapping, as if multiple directives were being forced into one form. Resolution will be absolute. The defected enforcer steps between them. For the first time, it acts without command. You cannot engage this, it said. Adrian's voice didn't waver. Then we don't engage it the same way. Elara understands instantly. This isn't something to fight. This isn't something to resist. This is something that must be recognized or removed. The root does not respond. For the first time, it remains still. Not weak. Not overwhelmed. Waiting. The Watcher speaks carefully. This is where you become something more. Elara didn't look away from the shifting form. What does that mean? A pause. You cannot meet what has no structure as something defined. The meaning settles. She cannot hold balance the same way. Cannot anchor. Cannot stabilize. Because this thing does not exist within those rules. The first move. The entity shifted, not advancing, expanding into possibility. Space warped around it. Edges of the world bending. As if reality itself struggled to define it. Adrian steps closer. Not in front of her. Beside her. Always beside her. Then we don't define it, he said quietly. A breath. We let it see us instead. Final moment. Elara didn't reach for the root. Didn't brace the network. She stood, open, present, unfixed. And for the first time, the war stopped being about what they could hold, and became about what they were willing to become. Chapter 88. What she becomes to face it. The entity did not advance. It did not need to. Reality bent toward it anyway. The ground beneath Elara's feet felt distant, not gone, irrelevant to what stood before her. The first true separation. The root remained. The network remained. Adrian remained. But the thing in front of them did not recognize any of it. It did not see the bond. It did not feel the root. It did not register balance. Elara understands first. It's not attacking, she said quietly. Adrian's voice stayed close.
No.
A pause. It's removing anything that doesn't belong to it. And they don't belong. Not to it. Not to what it represents. Which means, to survive it, they cannot simply stand against it. They must become something it cannot erase. The Watcher speaks, carefully now. This is where the line either ends or transforms. Elara didn't look away. What does transformation require? A long pause. Letting go of what defines you now. The cost lands. Not power. Not control. Identity. Everything she had used to hold the world together. The root. The network. The bond as she understood it. Adrian feels the shift immediately. Elara. His voice wasn't fear. It was recognition. She was already stepping toward it. The first step beyond the root. She let her hand lift. Not from the ground.
From what it meant.
The root didn't disappear. But it no longer centered her. The bond changes again. Adrian reached for her. Not to stop her. To remain with her. And this time, the bond didn't anchor. It followed her outward. The network falls silent. Not broken.
Not gone.
Waiting. Because this
was not something it could participate in.
The entity responds. For the first time, it turned fully toward her. Not shifting. Not rewriting. Focusing. What it sees. Not a wolf. Not a Luna. Not part of the system it ignores. Something undefined. Something not yet decided. Elara does not resist. She doesn't hold. Doesn't stabilize. She lets go.
Of needing to.
The space around her changes. The distortion reaches. Touches. And for a moment, she feels it. The absence. The pull toward being undone. And then, she does something no one expects. She does not anchor herself. She does not fight it. She does not retreat. She exists anyway. The first impossibility. The entity shifts. Just slightly. Because what it touched did not conform, did not dissolve, did not react. Adrian steps fully into it with her. Not behind. Not beside. With her in the same space of uncertainty. I'm here, he says. And for the first time, that doesn't reinforce her.
It becomes part of what she is.
The bond is no longer a connection. It is not between them anymore. It is within them. Unseparated. Unmapped. The entity cannot resolve it. It expands, trying to encompass, to define, to remove. But what it encounters has no edge.
No boundary.
No fixed state. The Watcher sees it clearly. They are no longer within the system. A pause. They have become something else. The first true limitation of the unbounded. The entity hesitates. Not because it is stopped. Because it cannot determine what it is facing. Elara speaks, but not as before. You don't know what to do with us, she says. Not defiant.
Certain.
The entity responds, distorted. Undefined, cannot be processed. Its form flickers. For the first time. Not stable. Final moment. The world doesn't return. The root doesn't surge. The network doesn't ignite. Because none of that matters here. What matters is that something designed to erase anything outside its control has just encountered something it cannot touch. Not because it is stronger, but because it no longer fits within any rule that can be removed. Chapter 89. When the world begins to answer them. The entity did not vanish. It withdrew. Not defeated. Not destroyed. Unable to remain. The first true absence. Where it had stood, there was no scar. No mark. Only a space that felt undetermined. As if the world itself had not yet decided what belonged there. Elara exhaled slowly. Not from exhaustion. From recognition. It's gone, Kale said. The Watcher's voice followed.
No.
A pause. It cannot remain where it cannot define. What that means. Adrian looked out across the forest. It didn't lose. The Watcher did not disagree.
No.
A breath. It encountered something it cannot resolve. And that changes everything. Because the circle's greatest strength was certainty,
Definition.
control, through understanding. And now, there was something they could not process. The world does not return to what it was. The forest did not settle. It did not go back. It shifted.
Subtle.
But undeniable. The air felt aware. Not watched.
Participating.
Elara feels it first.
It's responding, she said.
Adrian turned toward her. To what? She didn't answer immediately. Because the answer wasn't simple. The root is no longer just beneath them. It wasn't contained. It wasn't centralized. It had spread, not in threads, in presence. Where she stepped, it existed. Not visibly, but felt. The first true expansion. Kale tested it. He moved several steps away, far beyond where the root had once reached.
He stopped.
Then looked back. It's here too. The Watcher confirms it. They have carried it beyond its origin. A pause. They are no longer bound to where it began. What they've become. Elara looked down at her hands. Not glowing.
Not changed.
And yet, everything about her had shifted. Not into something more powerful. Into something more present. Adrian feels it differently. He stepped away from her. Just enough. The bond didn't stretch. Didn't strain. It remained.
Complete.
I don't have to stay close to feel you anymore, he said. Elara met his gaze. Neither do I. The network reforms, but not as before. The wolves across distances stirred. Not pulled. Not summoned. Aware. The connection was no longer something that required structure. It existed. Because they did. The defected enforcer remains. It stood slightly apart. Still. Watching everything shift. You have changed the field, it said. Elara nodded. So have you. A pause. It didn't deny it. The circle withdraws for now. No new presence formed. No pressure returned. But that silence was not retreat. It was recalibration at a scale they had not needed before. The Watcher speaks, more clearly than ever. This is where the war changes. Adrian didn't look away from the horizon. It already has. The Watcher's presence deepened. Yes. A pause. But now it spreads. Beyond the forest. Far beyond where they stood. Across land that had been quiet. Something stirred. Not wolves. Not enforcers. Other things that had been watching. Waiting. Now aware. The first ripple of attention.
They feel it, the Watcher said.
Kale frowned.
Who?
A pause. Those who chose not to interfere until now. The weight of that truth. This had never just been about the circle. Never just about the silent Luna. There were others. Older. More distant. And now, they were beginning to look closer. Elara understands the next phase. This isn't contained anymore. Adrian shook his head.
No.
A breath. It never was. Final moment. Elara stepped forward. Not toward a threat. Toward the unknown. And this time, nothing pulled her back. Nothing anchored her in place. Because now, she didn't carry the balance. She was part of what allowed it to exist everywhere. And the world, for the first time, was beginning to answer back. Chapter 90. The ones who watched finally step forward. The light did not fade. It settled. Not into the ground. Not into the sky. Into everything. The first true quiet. For the first time since the circle had begun its reach, there was no immediate threat. No pressure pressing in. No distortion testing the edges. Just space. Adrian exhaled slowly. They're not coming back yet. The Watcher's presence lingered, unchanged, but closer now. No, it said. A pause. They are not the first to respond. Elara feels it before it arrives. Not as danger. Not as force. As attention. Different from the circle. Different from the Watchers. Older in a way that didn't measure time. They're here, she said quietly. Kale turned, scanning the horizon. I don't see anything. You won't, the Watcher replied. Not at first. The air shifts subtly. The forest didn't bend. The ground didn't tremble. But something, acknowledged presence. Not in one place. Everywhere. The first one appears. Not stepping through. Not descending. Becoming visible. A figure formed at the edge of the valley.
Tall.
Still. Not wolf. Not human. Something that carried the shape of both, but belonged fully to neither. Its eyes held no glow. No energy. Only knowing. Kale steps back, without meaning to. "That's not a watcher," he said. "No," the watcher answered. A pause. "They are older." The second and third follow. Not beside it. Far apart. Appearing across the landscape. Different forms. Different presences. All aware. What they are. "They are not one thing," the watcher said. "They are what remained when balance was first defined." The first voice reaches them. It didn't echo. Didn't travel. It simply existed in their awareness. "You have altered the pattern." Elara didn't step back. "We restored it." A pause. The presence regarded her. Not with judgment. With interest. "The truth they bring. You have not restored what was," it said. "You have created what did not exist." Adrian speaks, carefully. "Then why are you here?" The answer came without delay. "Because what you have become affects more than what you protect." The weight of that lands. This was no longer just about wolves. Not just about the circle. Not even just about balance within the world they knew. This touched everything. The defected enforcer watches them too. Silent. Still choosing. Still learning. Now witnessing something beyond even its original purpose. The watcher does not interfere. For the first time, it stepped back. Not retreating. Yielding space. Because this moment was not theirs to guide. The first true question. What you are becoming. The presence continued. Will either stabilize all that exists, a pause, or unravel what cannot adapt to it. Elara doesn't look away. "Then tell us what we need to do." Silence. Longer this time, because the answer was not simple. The answer comes slowly. You cannot return to what you were. A pause. You cannot remain only what you are now. Adrian's voice steadied. Then what are we becoming? The final truth of this moment. The presence shifted, not closer, not further, but clearer. Something that will decide what balance means next. The world waits. Not passively, expectantly. The forest. The sky. The unseen forces beyond. Everything now. Listening. Watching. Final moment. Elara didn't feel overwhelmed. Didn't feel small. Didn't feel unready. She felt necessary. And Adrian, standing beside her, was no longer her support. He was part of the same answer she had become. Chapter 91. What the silent Luna line truly was. The Ancient Ones did not move. They did not advance. They did not surround. They simply remained. And in that stillness, something far more powerful settled. Expectation. The weight of being seen. Elara felt it. Not as pressure, as clarity. There was nowhere to hide. No identity to retreat into. Not Luna. Not Wolf. Not even the balance she had become. Only what she truly was beneath all of it. Adrian feels it too. Not as exposure. As grounding. For the first time, he did not feel like he was standing beside her. He felt like they were both standing within the same truth. What are they waiting for? Kale asked quietly. The watcher did not hesitate. For you to understand. The first ancient speaks again. You believe this line was meant to preserve balance. Elara met its gaze. It was a pause. The presence did not argue, but it did not agree. The truth begins to unfold. It was not created to preserve what exists. The words settled slowly. It was created to ensure that balance could change without breaking everything tied to it. The meaning lands differently. Adrian's voice came first. So it wasn't protection. The ancient presence shifted slightly. It was transition. Everything reframes. The circle hadn't misunderstood the line. They had feared it, because it meant control could never be permanent. The watchers hadn't intervened. because the line was never meant to stop imbalance, only to ensure that imbalance could become something else without collapse. Elara sees it clearly now. This was never about holding things in place, she said. No, the presence replied. A pause. It was about allowing the world to survive what it becomes. The role she was never told. Not protector, not ruler, not even balance itself. She was the point where change does not destroy everything around it. Adrian's role becomes clear too. You're not separate from that, Elara said, turning to him. He didn't question it, because he felt it. I was never meant to hold you steady, he said. A quiet realization settled in his voice. I was meant to make sure you didn't have to become it alone. The ancient ones confirm it. Two are required, one said. Not to stabilize. A pause. To ensure that change does not collapse into isolation. Why the circle failed. They tried to control change. Define it. End it. But change, without connection, becomes destruction. Why the Watchers waited. They did not stop the circle, because the line was not gone. It was waiting for the moment when it could become something new, without breaking everything tied to it. The defected enforcer watches closely, understanding not fully, but enough, because even it
Was part of that change now.
the final question. What happens next?
Kale asked.
This time, the answer came from all of them. Not one voice, not one presence, but a shared knowing, the truth that changes everything. You decide. Silence follows. Not empty. Open. Because this was not a path already written, not a balance already defined. Elara steps forward, not toward them, not toward a threat,
Toward possibility.
and for the first time, she does not feel like she is carrying something. She feels like she is standing at the beginning of something no one has defined yet. Final moment. Adrian steps with her, not following, not leading, choosing with her. And the world
Does not resist.
It does not collapse. It does not fracture. It waits to become what they will allow it to be. Chapter 92. The choice that defines everything. The world did not press them. It did not rush them. It waited. That was the weight of it. Not urgency. Responsibility. No one moves first. The ancient ones remained still. The Watcher did not speak. Even Kale, who had always filled silence with instinct, said nothing, because this moment did not belong to action. It belonged to decision. Elara feels the edges of what could be. Not visions. Not futures laid out clearly. Possibilities. Threads of what the world could become, stretching outward in every direction. Some stable, some fractured, some beautiful, some that should never exist. Adrian stands within it with her. He didn't ask what she saw. He didn't try to guide it. He simply said, "You don't have to carry it alone." And that mattered, because this choice was never meant to be made in isolation. The first understanding of what they can do. They could stabilize everything, lock balance into something unchanging, safe, predictable,
Permanent.
and slowly.
Dead. Or
They could allow change to continue, let the world evolve, shift, grow beyond what even the ancient ones had known, and risk everything. Kale finally speaks. So those are the choices, he asked. Elara shook her head slowly.
No.
A breath. Those are the easy ones. The real choice. Not control. Not chaos. Something harder. Something that required them to hold both, without letting either consume the other. The ancient ones watch closely, not judging, not guiding, because this was the moment they had waited for. Elara steps forward, not into light, not into darkness, into the space between them, where nothing had been defined yet. Adrian moves with her, without hesitation, without question, because wherever she stepped, he was already choosing it too. The choice is not spoken. It is not declared, not shaped into words. It is done, what they choose, not to stop change, not to surrender to it, but to become the point where change and stability can exist together without destroying each other. The world responds instantly. Not violently, not dramatically, but completely. The air shifts. The ground steadies. The unseen forces beyond.
Pause.
The first true balance. Not held, not enforced.
Allowed.
The ancient ones acknowledge it. You have chosen continuation. A pause. With consequence. The Watcher speaks again. For the first time since stepping back, it steps forward. You have defined what balance becomes. The weight returns, but different now. Not overwhelming. Anchored.
Shared.
The circle feels it. Far beyond sight, beyond distance. Something within them fractures again. Not from attack. From being outgrown. Final moment. Elara looks out across the world. Not as something she must hold together, but something she now understands. And Adrian, standing beside her, does not feel like her anchor anymore. He feels like the other half of something that cannot be separated. Chapter 93. The last thing the circle becomes. The shift does not ripple outward. It lands. Across the world. Across the unseen. Across every structure the circle had ever built. The first sign. Silence. Not the quiet of absence. The quiet of something being undone from within. Adrian feels it immediately. They felt that, he says. The Watcher does not soften. Yes. A pause. And they cannot exist with it. Why the circle cannot remain? Because the circle is built on definition.
Control.
Finality. And what Elara and Adrian have chosen removes the possibility of anything ever being final again. The fracture begins inside them. Far beyond sight, the circle's structure tightens. Not to stabilize. To resist what is already changing. Elara sees it without looking. They're not adapting, she says. Adrian's voice is quiet.
No. A pause.
They're choosing something else. The Watcher speaks the truth. They cannot evolve.
A beat.
So, they will attempt to end what forces them to. The sky responds one last time. The fracture returns. But not like before. Not layered. Not calculated. Unified. The circle appears as one. Not many voices. Not many forms.
One.
A single presence. Massive. Controlled. Absolute. Everything they had been. Condensed. The final form. It does not resemble wolves. It does not resemble anything that once lived. It is. Structure itself. Rigid.
Perfect.
Unchanging. Kale breathes it out. That's everything they are. The Watcher does not look away. Yes. A pause. And everything they cannot become. The circle speaks, one last time. You have introduced instability beyond acceptable thresholds.
No distortion. No overlap.
Perfect clarity. Correction will now be absolute. No one moves to defend. Not Elara. Not Adrian. Because they understand now. This is not something to fight. The world holds its breath. Not in fear. In recognition. Because this moment will not just end the circle. It will define what happens when something refuses to change. The defected enforcer steps forward. Not toward Elara. Toward the circle. I was part of this, it says. Its voice no longer fractured. I am not anymore. The circle does not acknowledge it. Because it cannot. There is no space within it for deviation now. Elara steps forward. Not as Luna. Not as protector. As the point where change meets what refuses it. Adrian moves with her. Always. Not reinforcing. Completing. The final confrontation is not a battle. The circle advances. Not with force. With inevitability. Elara does not resist. She does not anchor. Does not hold. Does not oppose. She remains. Adrian does the same. No force.
No push.
Only presence. And the impossible happens again. The circle reaches them. And finds nothing to correct. Nothing to override. Nothing fixed enough to be controlled. The first failure of finality. It tries to define them,
but they are not static.
It tries to contain them, but they are not bound. It tries to end them, but they are not something that ends. The moment the circle cannot continue, its structure strains, not breaking from attack, breaking from irrelevance. The Watcher speaks quietly. It cannot exist where it is no longer needed. The final shift. The circle does not explode, does not collapse. It simply unravels. What remains? Not destruction, not victory.
Absence.
Final moment. Elara stands where it once was. Not holding anything, not carrying anything, just present. And Adrian, beside her, is no longer the one who keeps her steady. He is part of the same existence she has become. Chapter 94. What remains after control ends. Nothing rushed in to replace it. No new force claimed dominance. No hidden structure rose to take command. There was no correction.
No overseer.
Only continuation. The first true quiet. It wasn't empty. It was unmanaged. The wind moved without pattern. The light shifted without directive. The world did not wait to be told what to become. It began to choose for itself. Kale feels it uneasily. So, that's it, he asked. His voice held something unfamiliar. Not fear. Discomfort. Adrian understands it immediately.
No, he said.
A pause. That's the point. The difference without the circle. Before, everything had pushed back. Every imbalance triggered response. Every shift was corrected. Now, nothing interfered. Elara watches the change closely. Not everything settled. Some places deepened into stillness. Some began to shift faster. Growth where there had been none. Instability where there had once been structure. The truth of an uncontrolled world. Balance did not mean calm. It meant freedom to become. And that was far more unpredictable than control had ever allowed. The Watcher remains, but different now. It did not step forward. It did not guide. It simply observed. You have removed what enforced limitation, it said. A pause. Now you will see what exists without it. The first test comes quietly. Not an attack. Not a threat.
A shift.
In the distance, the forest line bends. Not breaking. Changing direction. Something new forming where nothing had been before. Kale notices it first. That wasn't there. Elara nodded.
No. A breath.
It is now. The world begins to experiment. Patterns emerge, then fade. Some stabilize. Some don't. Not all of it is good. Not all of it is safe. But all of it is
real.
Adrian steps forward slightly. Not to stop it.
To feel it.
This is what they were afraid of, he said. Why the circle tried to end it. Because a world that changes freely cannot be predicted.
Cannot be owned.
Cannot be controlled. Elara feels the weight again, but differently. Not something she must hold. Something she must allow without letting it break everything around it. The new role takes shape. Not preventing change. Not forcing stability. But standing where change and consequence meet. The defected enforcer remains nearby. Watching. Not as a tool. As something still learning what it is. You do not control this, it says. Elara shakes her head.
No.
A pause. But we're part of what keeps it from collapsing. The first true understanding of the future. This world will not be easy. It will not be fixed. It will not remain still. But it will not be erased. Final moment. Elara steps forward into the shifting forest. Not to guide it. Not to shape it. But to walk within what it becomes. Adrian follows. Not behind. Beside. And, this time, there is no center. No origin point. Because balance is no longer a place. It is something that moves with them. Chapter 95. The first consequence of freedom. It begins small. So small most would not notice. But Elara does. The shift that should not be ignored. At the edge of the valley, where new growth had begun to spread, something changes direction. Not outward. Inward. The trees bend, not toward light. Toward each other. Too tightly. Too fast. Adrian sees it next. That's not growth, he says. A pause. That's compression. The difference matters.
Growth expands, adapts,
finds space. This
closes it.
Kale moves first, instinct pulling him forward. I'll check it, he says. But Elara steps with him, not stopping him, not leading him, just present where it matters. The closer they get, the air thickens. Not like the circle, not like pressure, like something trying to become too much. In too little space, the first true consequence. Without control, nothing prevents imbalance from forming. And not all imbalance is meant to evolve. Some collapse inward. The trees twist. Branches intertwine, too tightly.
Rotsnat. Too deep.
The ground beneath them begins to fracture, not breaking outward, caving in. Kale's voice drops. That's not natural. The Watcher answers. It is.
A pause.
Without limitation, everything is allowed to attempt existence. The hard truth. Not everything that can exist should. Elara steps forward, not to stop it, not to destroy it. She reaches, not for the root, for the space within the imbalance. Adrian moves with her, without hesitation, because this is what they chose. The new role becomes real. Not guardians, not rulers, interveners. She doesn't force it apart. She doesn't break the trees, doesn't tear the roots. She introduces space. The world responds. Not immediately, but gradually. The compression loosens. Branches separate. Roots release. The ground steadies. Not erased, redirected. The growth does not disappear. It shifts outward again, finding form that can sustain itself. Adrian sees it clearly. We don't stop it, he says.
A breath.
We help it survive itself. The Watcher confirms it. Yes. A pause. That is the cost of what you chose. The first understanding of their future. This will not be a single moment, not a single battle, not a single correction. It will be constant, subtle, endless. The defected enforcer watches closely. You allow it to exist, it says. Elara nods. Yes. A pause. But not in a way that destroys everything around it. Kale breathes out slowly. So this never ends. Elara looks out across the shifting world.
No.
A quiet truth settles in her voice. It begins. Final moment. The valley stretches before them.
Alive.
Unpredictable. Uncontrolled. And for the first time, they are not standing at the center of it. They are moving with it. Not to control the world. Not to protect it from itself. But to ensure that when it changes, it does not collapse under the weight of its own becoming. Chapter 96. The ones who learn from them. They do not notice it at first, because nothing announces itself anymore. No signal.
No call. Just quiet change.
The first one arrives without a rival. At the edge of the clearing, where the forest had been gently redirected, a presence lingers. Not hidden. Not revealed. Simply there. Kale senses it before he sees it. We're not alone. Adrian doesn't turn immediately. We haven't been. But this feels different. Elara looks and sees. A young wolf. Not fully grown. Not fully formed. Its eyes, not uncertain. Watching with intent. Not drawn, choosing. It does not approach because it was called. It steps forward because it wants to understand. The first of the new line. Not born into the silent Luna lineage. Not connected by the old network. But aware. Responsive. Already sensing something the world has become. Kale softens slightly. That's new. Elara nods. Yes. A pause. It's not connected the way we were. Adrian feels it differently. It doesn't need to be. Because the connection now is not something past. It is something recognized. The wolf steps closer. Careful. Not afraid. Curious. It stops a few steps away, watching Elara. Not as a leader. Not as a Luna. But as something it already understands, without needing to be told. The first silent exchange. No words.
No commands.
Just presence. The wolf lowers its head, not in submission, in acknowledgement. The defected enforcer watches closely. You are not transferring the structure, it says. Elara shakes her head.
No.
A breath. It's learning it. The shift in legacy. The silent Luna line will not continue as it began.
No hidden bloodline. No singular inheritance.
Instead, something broader. Something freer. The Watcher observes quietly. This was not how the line was intended to continue. A pause. But it is how it must. More appear, slowly. Not all at once. Not in numbers. But one. Then another. Across distance. Across space. Across places where the world has begun to change. Not followers. Not a pack. Something else. Individuals. Each responding in their own way. Each learning balance. Without being told how. Kale watches it unfold. So this is it, he says. No hierarchy. No structure. Elara looks at the young wolf again. Not the old kind. Adrian adds quietly. But not chaos either. Because even without structure, there is still connection. Still awareness. Still understanding. The first lesson begins. The young wolf steps closer again. Testing. Not dominance. Interaction. Elara kneels slightly. Not lowering herself. Meeting it where it stands. No teaching, only presence. She doesn't guide it. Doesn't show it. She simply exists in balance. And the wolf begins to mirror it. The future becomes visible. Not a single line. Not a single legacy. But many. All connected. Not by blood. Not by command. But by choice and awareness. Final moment. The clearing holds. Not as a center. But as a beginning. Elara stands again. The young wolf beside her now. Not bound. Not owned. Choosing to remain. And Adrian, watching it all unfold, finally understands the full weight of what they've done. They didn't just change the world. They made it possible for something new to rise, without needing to replace what came before. Chapter 97. What they leave behind. They do not decide it all at once. There is no single moment, no spoken agreement, just a series of smaller recognitions that begin to align. The world no longer leans toward them. At first, Elara notices it in the silences. Places that once shifted when she entered, now continue as they are. Not ignoring her. Not resisting her. Simply existing without needing her presence to hold them steady. Adrian feels it differently. Not as absence. As release. He walks a little farther ahead one afternoon. Not testing the bond. Just moving. And for the first time, nothing pulls him back. Not because it's gone. Because it doesn't need to hold anymore. It exists. Without effort. Without strain. Kale notices before they say it. You're not staying, are you? The question isn't sharp. It's understood. Elara doesn't answer immediately. Because this isn't about leaving. It's about no longer being required in the same way. The new wolves continue to gather. Not around them. Not forming ranks. Across distances. Across territories. Each one learning. Each one adjusting. Some stumble. Some adapt quickly. But none wait for instruction. The line has become something else. Not a lineage. A pattern. Something the world itself can recognize. And respond to. Without needing it to be carried by one person. The defected enforcer stands at the edge. Watching. Still not fully part of this new world. But no longer separate from it either. You are no longer central, it says. Not as observation. As truth. Adrian nods, slightly. That was never the point. Elara finally speaks. We were only meant to make sure it could happen. The weight lifts quietly. Not dramatically.
No sudden shift.
Just the absence of something that once required constant attention. The Watcher appears one last time. Not towering. Not distant. Closer than before. You have completed the purpose of the line as it was known. A pause. What remains is not yours to carry. Elara meets its presence calmly. It never was. The final understanding. They were not meant to hold the world together. They were meant to ensure it could hold itself. The choice they do not announce. They don't declare they are leaving. They simply begin to move. Not away.
Forward.
Kale watches them go. Not following. Not staying behind either. Just standing where he belongs now. Within a world that no longer depends on a center. Final moment. Elara and Adrian walk beyond the valley. Not toward a destination, but into something unwritten. No longer needed in the same way. No longer defined by what they held. But still, together. Chapter 98. The quiet after becoming. The world does not call them back. No imbalance pulls at Elara's awareness. No shift demands Adrian's presence. There is no urgency left in the bond. Only peace. They walk without purpose, and that matters. Not wandering, not searching, simply moving. For the first time, their steps are not tied to anything beyond themselves. The land changes as they pass, but not because of them. Rivers adjust their paths. Trees grow in new patterns. Creatures move in ways that had never existed before. But nothing bends toward them. Nothing reacts to their presence. The world is not asking for guidance anymore. Adrian notices it first. It's steady, he says. Elara looks out across the shifting horizon.
No. A breath.
It's capable. The difference is everything. Steady can break. Steady can be held in place. Capable can change and remain whole. They find a place without meaning to. Not marked. Not special. Just a quiet rise overlooking a wide stretch of land. Open sky. Open ground. Nothing pulling them forward. Nothing holding them there.
They sit.
Not because they need rest. Because they can. The bond is still there.
Not gone.
Not diminished. But no longer something they rely on to stay aligned. It simply exists. Adrian speaks after a while. We could keep going. Not a suggestion. Just a truth. Elara nods slightly. We could. A pause. And nothing would break if we didn't. That is the ending they earned. Not responsibility. Not endless vigilance.
Choice.
The watcher does not return. Because it doesn't need to. Nothing needs to confirm what has already settled into place. The world continues without witness. Some places flourish. Some struggle. Some fail and begin again. Not perfect. Not controlled.
Real.
Elara looks out one last time. Not searching for imbalance. Not checking what needs to be corrected.
Just seeing.
Adrian doesn't ask what she sees. Because it's not something that needs to be spoken anymore. Final moment. They remain there. Not as guardians. Not as anchors. Just together. And the world does not need them to define it. It continues. Because it now knows how to become what it needs to be. Chapter 99. What remains between them. It begins without intention.
No declaración.
No moment marked as change. Just closeness that no longer carries weight. They stay longer than they planned. The hill becomes a place they return to, not because it calls them, because they choose it. Days pass. Then more. Not counted.
Lived.
Their bond changes again, but softly. Not stronger. Not deeper. More natural. No longer something forged through crisis. Something that exists in quiet moments. A glance. A step taken at the same time. The way Adrian's hand finds hers. Not out of need, but out of knowing. Elara feels it first. This is different, she says one evening. The sky shifting in colors the world has only recently learned to hold. Adrian doesn't ask what she means. I know. Because he does. Not balance. Not duty. This is not what they became to save the world. This is what remains when nothing needs saving. The first change between them. Not in power. Not in presence. In possibility. Elara feels it in the quiet moments. Something expanding. Not outward into the world. Inward. Adrian notices without being told. You feel it too, he says. Not a question. A recognition. The beginning of something new. Not a continuation of the line as it was. Not an inheritance. Something entirely their own. Time moves gently. Seasons shift. The world continues learning itself. And they remain, not because they are needed, but because they want to be there. The first heir is not announced. It is not marked by power, not by a surge in the world. It arrives, quietly, as everything meaningful now does. What they become as parents. Not rulers, not guides, not even teachers in the way they once understood. They do not shape what comes next. They allow it to become. The child is different. Not bound to the old line, not carrying the weight Elara once did, not needing to hold balance, but aware of it. From the beginning, a new kind of presence. Where Elara became balance, and Adrian became what allowed it to endure. Their child moves within it as something natural, unforced, unburdened. The watcher returns only once, not to observe the world, to observe what has come from them. You have done what the line was never able to do before. Elara meets its presence calmly. What is that? A pause. You have allowed it to continue without needing to begin again. Legacy without repetition.
No cycles. No collapse.
No waiting for balance to be restored. Only continuation. More follow, in time. Not many. Not rapidly. But enough. Each one different. Each one carrying something of both Elara and Adrian. But not defined by either. Kale watches from a distance. Not part of this moment. But not separate from it either. You really changed everything, he says once. Adrian glances at him.
No.
A quiet truth. We just made it possible. Final moment. The hill remains. But now it is not a place of ending. It is a place where something continues. Through them. Through what they've created. Through what no longer needs to be protected. Elara stands with Adrian, their child between them, not as a symbol of legacy, but as proof that what they became was never meant to end with them. Chapter 100. The story that does not end. There is no final battle. No last threat rising to test what they became. No moment where everything pauses, waiting for a conclusion, because the ending already happened. Not in silence. Not in victory. But in the moment the world no longer needed to be held together. What remains now is simpler. Morning comes. Not summoned. Not earned. Just arriving. Light stretches across the land, touching forests that now grow in their own rhythm. Rivers that shape themselves. Creatures that move without being guided. Elara wakes without weight. Not because she has lost something, but because there is nothing left she must carry. She steps outside, not searching, not checking, just existing within what continues. Adrian is already there. Not waiting, just present, the way he always is now.
No tensión. No urgency.
Only quiet certainty. You feel it, he asks, not because he needs confirmation, because he knows she will. Elara closes her eyes briefly, not reaching, not extending outward, just listening. The world answers differently now, not with calls for help, not with imbalance needing correction, but with something softer.
Movement. Growth.
Becoming. It's steady, she says, then pauses.
No.
A small, knowing smile. It's alive. Their children move freely within it, not watched, not protected, not needing to be. They run through the fields, through forests that shift and hold at the same time. Learning not by instruction, but by being part of something that already understands itself. The legacy does not look like a legacy.
No throne.
No title. No singular figure carrying the meaning of what came before. Just continuation. Different in every direction. Connected in ways that do not require explanation. The defected enforcer is gone. Not destroyed. Not removed. Simply no longer separate. Part of something that no longer needs to divide itself to understand what it is. The watchers do not return, because there is nothing left to observe that requires intervention. Only a world that now carries its own balance, not as a fixed state, but as something that adapts without breaking. Adrian looks out across it all, not with responsibility, not with ownership, just understanding. We don't have to stay here, he says. Not leaving, just acknowledging. Elara turns toward him. We don't have to leave either. The final truth. Nothing is pulling them forward. Nothing is holding them back. For the first time, they are not moving because something needs them. They move because they choose to. And that is the ending. Not an end of story, but the end of necessity. Final moment. They walk. Not away, not toward, just forward, into a world that no longer needs to be saved, but will continue to become, because they made it possible. And somewhere behind them, not fading, not disappearing, everything they were, everything they changed, everything they became, remains, not as something remembered, but as something that continues without needing to be told how.
Every story begins with a moment. A meeting. A choice. A step taken before its meaning is understood. This one began with a summons. A pull neither of them could ignore. And it led them through conflict. Through transformation. Through a truth far greater than either of them expected to carry. But this was never just their story. It was never only about the bond. Never only about survival. It was about something older. A line that did not separate the world, but held it together when everything tried to pull it apart. And that line was never meant to stay hidden. It was meant to return. Not as power. Not as control. But as something far more difficult to hold. Balance that could survive change. They did not win. Not in the way stories often promise. They did not conquer what opposed them. They did not claim the world as their own. They became something else. The point where change did not destroy what came before it. The place where the world could continue. Without breaking. And because of that, everything changed. Not suddenly. Not perfectly. But honestly. The world no longer needed to be held in place. It learned how to move. To shift. To become. And they were no longer required to carry it. That is the quiet truth at the end of this story. Not loss. Not distance. Freedom. What they built did not end with them. It continued. In the world. In those who followed. In something that no longer needed to be named to exist. And that is what makes this story different. It does not close. It does not disappear. It continues. In ways that do not need to be told. To be real. Final thought. Some stories are meant to end.